I'd just like to make one comment up front, and I hope it's not controversial, but I don't need to be first on the order of sale, but the topic was last, which is what is it for the consumer. Interesting enough, we've made this last on today's schedule, and so there's no criticism of those who've organised today, but fundamentally, I think what's in it for the consumer should have been number one on today's schedule. Yeah. I've worked with spin doctors many times over the years, and that's another good example of one right there, so well done, John, thank you. But look, ultimately, consumer is the number one issue. Consumers, in one form or another, don't like our industry, and we need to change that. And Shannon touched on this earlier. You know, who is our consumer? Traditionally, we've considered the vendor and the landlord as our consumer. But clearly, as a professional, we owe a duty of care or a duty to the broader community. Buyers and tenants have traditionally been at the tail end of our love. They're probably the most loathsome of our industry, I would suggest. So putting aside our self-serving agendas, we need to see an essential shift in our perspective on who our clients are and how we serve the community. And this is what the consumer should expect. They should expect that the real estate business is going to change its view. In terms of what's in it for the community, one of the things that we've looked at is Uber. And I know Uber just keeps coming up all the time. It's always Uber this, Uber that, Uber this. But what they did address when considering the taxi industry were 4 fundamental issues, which was a delivery of service, reliable, clean, they managed expectations, a convenience of delivery. You knew how the process worked. It was streamlined. It was trackable through technology. We knew exactly what was going on. We knew the status of things. And it was accountable. The drivers, if they fall below a 4.5 star rating, they get kicked out. And in fact, if we as consumers are also substandard, we get kicked out. So I think there's a lot to be said about streamlining that model of accountability and delivering to the marketplace what the consumers want. What I did also find interesting about Uber is something that works against them, and that is surge pricing. So they've got this great model, but when pricing starts to get out of whack, the consumers start to turn away. So we do need to find that balance in terms of value proposition at the same time. I'm going to pass over to Kylie in a second because we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different ideas just to stimulate thought on what we might give back to the consumers and the community at large. But ultimately, what I'd say to you is consumers want to enjoy the experience, and price is not the number one driver. Kylie?
Sorry, gentlemen, I just come down here because I hated having my back to you. Look, so much has been said today. I think probably just something that I wanted to raise before, John, if you wouldn't mind clicking through to the slide deck about what the expectations are of the consumer, is over the last couple of weeks in preparation for today, at every coffee shop that I've gone to on the east and the north side, I've embarrassed myself and put myself out there and asked a couple of key questions from baristas and people standing in the coffee shop, and to my daughter's horror at school drop-off prior to school holidays, asked the question. Usually at the dinner parties and barbecues, we're the ones that get asked about how's the market and things like that. Actually really different to put yourself on the other side of that and say to often strangers, as I have done the last couple of weeks, or mums and dads at school. And my children go to school in Willoughby, pretty handy agent here today that's from there. So it's not a dud marketplace, it's quite an astute marketplace. And when you asked those consumers about what we do well as an agent and what we don't do well, and what their expectations are, can I just share with you, some of them are surprising. So quickly, marketing, general consensus, we all did marketing really, really well. We just weren't transparent and we weren't honest. So, and someone talked about fee me glee. It was all about when they called an agent in, the fee that they were going to charge, the price and the investment that they were going to get. Then it was all about me being them, the vendor, and what the agent could do for them. And then it was glee. They signed it up and off it went again, fee me glee through the whole campaign. But when they came to talk about fee again, it was after they'd signed, and I think we all know, we run back to the office and they think, well, what do we do? And it was the communication and how it just stopped. and they've said, we hand our keys over to you guys, off you go, we don't see you for a week or 10 days, and my best friend, my mother, doesn't have the keys to my house. So you guys really need to think about what you're doing. Otherwise, we're going to stop giving you the keys to our houses, and we'll find alternate options. What do you really do for your fee? That was probably the biggest one, and that we need to look at our model and the fee that we're charging. And if we are going to go down this professional route, a couple of things that came up was, well, maybe you should start charging like lawyers, or maybe that you should start changing the way that you charge, and you should let us pick what we actually pay for rather than just a percentage. Big one, we don't provide a solution. We provide the process and the agenda that we want, and if they ring and ask a question and they really are looking for guidance and spending more time with their agent, big feedback that I got from a lot of people that I trusted when I asked this question, particularly in the local area, was we just don't get the solution, so we end up ringing you. A lot of the time, that was the feedback that I got. This is what they think. A few buyers, the way we were treated as the losing bidder at auction with $2 or $3 million was appalling, and we haven't heard from anybody since. So that's come through, I think, the message today from buyers very, very strongly. And poor follow-up. So they go and seek alternate solutions again. So a lot of outsourcing coming from the people that I asked in my little mini focus groups. So I think moving forward, if we are going to go down this line, there needs to be some more consultation. I'm assuming that there will be around focus groups. And as Shannon said earlier, some of the stuff that Brad and I probably get pulled in here is our opinion. We didn't know the slide deck that was coming prior. Assumed that there'd be a lot of crossover, but this is a lot of Brad and my personal opinion. And sorry, Brad, I'm probably going to throw in some more personal opinion, but for those of you that know me, I'm not backward usually in coming forward with that. Transparency, I think we've touched a lot on that today, but we thought maybe a way to overcome that, and that being a constant complaint from the consumer, is to have a hotline moving forward, or interactive chat sessions that are 24/7. People want data quicker. When they get it, they want more of it, and why should they stop getting that data at 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock? So maybe that's potentially something that we can give back as professionals in the industry, and we can man those hotlines to show that we're serious about doing what we say we're going to do. I did say to Brad the other night when he was at the office, though, I did have concerns around who would be manning that hotline and the answers that they would be putting forward. So I guess that comes back to, again, what's the rating or what's the benchmark if we are going to go down this line, and how serious are we going to be about it?
Indeed, Kylie. I'll just cut across. One of the things we discussed was possibly making that community service an adjunct to the studies that we have to undertake. So when you've completed a core subject, perhaps that's what you need to go and add back to the community by being able to be accessible for a hotline service, or whatever the case may be.
And look, I'm not going to touch on the next 6 or 7 because I think you guys have, you've had enough of that today. But I think, we talked about things like providing dispute resolution. So I know our good friends from OFT are here, but rather than getting OFT involved or educating the consumer to go to OFT and potentially speaking to one person, then half an hour later ringing and getting a different bit of advice, is providing that dispute resolution and making sure that they're aware of that, and actually being able to provide the consumer with factual information. And then we have a real value proposition if they can walk away from that and know it was fair and we walked through the process. Stress relief and counselling. I mean, we all know that, if somebody dies or gets divorced and moving house, I think, comes in third, is what a great service for us as a professional body to put out there. And maybe that is something that will provide us with value. I know it's different, but I think we've got to be different because our whole model is changing, whether we like it or not. Look, couple more there, but I think talking case studies, experiences that people have been through, and interactive videos around that would be priceless, because, if we sit there and talk about the process and what's going to happen, and please trust us in this, I think the best way to do that is through people's personal stories and getting those in front of camera and having a library around, well, this is what we did with our agent prior to auction, and this is why it worked, and this is the solution that we had. But look, we could sit here and go through all of these one-on-one, but I think in summary, in closing, just having a look at the time, John, if you wouldn't mind popping through the next slide, is we all know that consumers can get this data wherever they want. It's the right data that they get. So if you were to Google as a consumer looking to put your house on the market and you had no relationship with an agent or you didn't have influence, and you type in things like, what should I do if I'm putting my house to auction, or what should I do if I'm looking to appoint an agent, it's actually pretty scary what comes up. I don't know if you've done that, but talking about, registered training organisations that probably are less credible than others, is the information that's there we need to control. And I think the other thing that we need to be really, really mindful of is that we shouldn't be afraid to share this knowledge. I mean, I think if we control it and we actually dictate what goes out, then we will become relevant. We will be here for the long term. But the more we hide it, the more we stand behind it, less we stand behind, I guess, smoke and mirrors, is the more the consumer will actually believe in what we're doing. But look, it's been said today, so I'm trying to go as quickly as I can. Any questions? Or Brad, did I forget anything?
No, Kylie, you're right on top of it. I'd just like to finish off very quickly. It was touched on before. I think the key metaphor for this is that conveyancing solicitor situation, and we've discussed it many, many, many times. Plainly, they deregulated that situation. They brought in 895 conveyancers. There's a market for it, but there remains a market for quality service. Now, the situation that we have now is agents giving conveyancer service demanding solicitor fees. And until we become solicitor service, then we're always in danger. That is, as I see it, the key component. And eventually when we get to that level, we'll be fine. We actually genuinely will be fine. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thank you.